First things first, I want to show you guys this, I mean, obviously we're not in a hotel room, we're in a hotel room set. But what I wanted them to set up for us was something that looked very, very much like what 90% of us would encounter when we actually go out and shoot a wedding. Now, it's lovely when you can shoot at a Ritz or a Four Seasons or a bed and breakfast with beautiful eastern-facing windows that are floor to ceiling with light cascading through, but that rarely happens, rarely. For the most part, the weddings that I'm shooting are all getting ready in everyday hotel rooms. Sometimes the venue is wonderful, but the hotel that's kind of a nearby choice is maybe not the best, but they take it because it's convenient to their location, or maybe this is the getting ready room that the venue has for them, and it was easier for them to do that than get ready in a hotel. So whatever it may be, sometimes you find yourself in places that are a little less than ideal. And the first thing that you do is don't judge your client, ever. Don't ever judge your client based on where they're getting ready, where they're having their ceremony, where they're having their reception. You have no idea anything about any of these people. And if you walk in and you're like, ugh, this room is awful, it's disrespectful. And you should never be disrespectful to your clients, ever. When I walk into a room and it looks like this and I realize that it's going to be a huge challenge, I don't go, ugh, this is awful. I go, okay, this is tough. What do I do to make this gorgeous? Because you have to remember that to your bride and to your groom, this is their wedding day. This isn't your creative photo shoot. This is their wedding, and you need to not disrespect that. So I don't want you to feel like we're making fun of anything or mocking anything or making a caricature of anything. I'm just trying to show you what real, average, everyday, lovely weddings look like, you know, without all the bells and whistles that would be really nice. So what we have is usually a whole lot like this, and humorously enough, this is actually about 4 times bigger than most New York hotel rooms, so I'm feeling pretty good to start with. We've got stuff laying out as it would be. We've got phenomenal suitcases getting in my way. We have some walls that don't necessarily look great. We have about 6 different white balances going on in here at one time. And you know, in the first couple of years of me being in business, I would walk in and think, my God, what in the world am I going to do in here? I don't know what to do. And the first thing that I would do would be to turn on every single light in the room. But nowadays, that's not necessarily what I want to do, because the more light that you have, that's not necessarily a good thing. Sometimes you don't want tons and tons of light. Sometimes you want a beautiful, delicate, small amount of light, as long as it's lovely, as opposed to a huge gush of light that isn't really giving you what you want. So the only way that I could actually make this room better for what I wanted to show you is to paint all the walls black. And listen, we don't ever go into rooms where all the walls are painted black. They're generally white, or if you're at the beach, they're teal or yellow, which is a color balancing joy, is the good pale mint green room. Yeah, it's really awesome. So this is a lot of what we're looking at when we walk into a wedding day. And I'm going to show you how I shoot, but I also want to talk to you about how I approach it just a little bit beforehand, both as kind of an aesthetic approach and then how I set up my gear. When we come in to the wedding day at the very, very beginning, like I mentioned before, for those of you who caught us before you so sweetly indulged our set change, a lot of my clients have come to really like the way that I do detail shots. Not just because I'm taking pictures of details just because, but because I'm trying to make them into beautiful art pieces all on their own. So they'll tend to do basically what's been done for me in the room here, which is to lay it all out in front of me. So I come in and I've got, you know, the bouquets, which usually aren't laying on the bed. They're usually in the vases, soaking wet, and they'll take them out and hold them, and then it'll get all over their clothes. But we have bouquets, we have some invitations, a veil, a bunch of incredibly lovely average jewelry, and a dress hanging in the window. So when I come in, before I even start shooting, I say hi to the client. We put our gear against the wall, and I have no cameras on, and I go and I find the bride. And I say, hey Naomi, how are you doing? How's everything going? Usually she's in hair and makeup. Yes, you look lovely. And I just, you know, how are things going? I just wanted to let you know I'm here. I'm going to start with all of your details. A lot of times she'll be wearing her engagement ring. I'll ask if I can take it. I'll ask if she's got the bands, or do one of the groomsmen have the bands. And if we just have the engagement ring and it's really important for her to get pictures of all of the rings together, I'll usually grab them later during the reception and take all of their rings and shoot them together then. But she's almost always got her engagement ring, so she takes it off and gives it to me. I never let the ring out of my sight. I know this might be photo 101 for some of you, but one of my biggest fears is to have something lost or stolen. One of the first really fancy weddings that I shot, the bride had been gifted a Rolex from the groom, and it was stolen out of the hotel room. And I was terrified that anyone would ever think it was me. Of course it's not me. We're not going to steal your Rolex. The fastest thing I could do to be put out of business is to steal your things. So I'm not going to do that. But if we have the rings and we're shooting them, the rings are either in my hand or they're in my assistant's hand. If we haven't shot them right away and we're going to shoot some other stuff and then we're going to get to the rings, she is going to hold them. We are putting them on our hands. I'm terrified of losing them. So we collect the details. We say hi to the mother. We talk to the bride. Usually we get introduced to the bridesmaids. How's everybody doing? And then it's time to shoot. We take the gear and try to store it as out of the way as possible without being out of the room. Sometimes we'll hide them in a bathroom, sometimes they go in a closet, but I want it to be where I can get at all points in time. And I have my gear here with me. You can look at my bag if you want, but it's not going to tell you much about an actual wedding day, because traveling here I just brought the things that I knew that I would need for shooting here. It's a very minimal kit. I don't have extensive backup cameras because I know that we have backups here if I need them, so I traveled with a very light rig. If I am going to be flying to a wedding, I will put all of my gear in a small bag and I will put the rest of my gear in another small bag and my assistant will carry it. We don't ever check our gear, ever. Which is partly why I don't shoot a lot of destination weddings anymore, because I don't want to worry about the hassle of traveling with all of my things. So when we get into the room, we have already gotten set up. We usually set up in the hallway or we set up in the lobby of wherever we're going to be. Get our gear set up, so we walk into the room and we already have 2 cameras on our shoulders. I'm only working with 1 camera today because of the tethering. I didn't want to make this too incredibly hard for them. This is my D4. Usually I start off the day with the macro on my D4, so we're going to do that. I always have the lens hood on my macro, partly because I like it, so partly because it protects the lens for me in case it bumps into anything. So we've got that. I'm notoriously bad about just doing things like this and then walking away from my lenses, so my assistant has to run around after me and pick up the stuff that I put down, which is partly why I have an assistant. So we walk in with the macro on the D4 and usually the 24-70 on the D3S, and we're set to go. I am not ever going to use a flash during a getting ready. I cannot even remember the last time I shot a flash during a getting ready. So the flashes are in the bag. The video light is easily accessible, and just for the purposes in here, I have my $40 video light off of Amazon.com. I would like to note that the front is broken and the back is missing the battery cover. So you can tell that I take really good care of this thing. This is sort of my go-to light for little details because it is just tiny and easy. I'm not going to bust out something like the ice light to shoot a detail like this. I just simply don't need that much light. I just need a little, and I'm done. So we walk in, to recap, the macro, which is my 105mm macro, is on my D4. My 24-70 is on my D3S. And to talk a little bit about the setup of how I actually have everything, when I am shooting with my D4, you know, it would really help if I put a compact flash card in it. So let's do that right now. See, I told you I make mistakes. What I have is my flash cards are just in a little bag. The reason being, for those of you who might not have caught that earlier, I only shoot 1 card all day long in each camera. Can you find me a 64 gig? Do you mind? No. Thank you. Not my assistant. The reason being, when you usually hear about somebody who has had a catastrophic failure at a wedding, it's because they've lost a card. I've got the D4, which has a backup card slot. I've got the D3S, which has a backup card slot. If anything were to ever happen to my primary cards, I'm shooting JPEG backups on my backup cards. RAW on the main card, JPEG fine on the second card. I almost never take the second card out. Even when I download, I leave the backup card in the camera. This way, when I'm done at the end of the day, I just pack my cameras up and walk away. If you just find a 32, that's okay too.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's format these. So I don't format until the very start of each wedding, and the reason is because if anything happens to the images that I'm editing during the week, I want to go back and be able to reference those compact flashcards. Same with the backup card. I just want it there until I absolutely need it again. I have a huge bag full of cards. I usually let them go as long as I possibly can before having to use them again. But Sandra, my assistant, and I, we sit out in the hallway and we format the cards. We compare the date and time on both of our cameras to make sure that the date and time are the same, because over time my D4 and my D3S tend to sort of get off by about 3 or 4 seconds per wedding day. And if I leave that too long, then when I'm editing the images later and I sort by capture time, they're a little out of order. So we always sync that up. Starting off in a getting ready room like this, and I'm adjusting my ISO sensitivity settings. The reason why I'm adjusting my ISO sensitivity settings is because I am an aperture priority shooter and I'm allowing my camera to do auto ISO. So what I've told my camera before I even get started is that with this 105mm macro, I want, let's just say for the sake of argument, I'm going to shoot at an 1/80th of a second, and anytime I need to go under an 1/80th of a second, my camera is going to bump me up to my next ISO. I can set my own ISO myself. I don't rely on auto ISO because I need it. My camera is just very good at it, so it's a tool that I'm fine trusting. I also tell it that the maximum ISO that I want it to go to is 10,000. I don't want it to go to 12.8 because, as I mentioned before, if I blow my exposure and underexpose it a little bit at 12.8 and we need to bring it up again, it's just simply too high an ISO for me to be comfortable with raising the exposure on it in post. Everything that I shoot is raw, unless it's going into my backup card slot, and then that's a fine JPEG. Also in a room like this, if there are all of the lights on or multiple lights on and I'm shooting with multiple lights on, I'm going to be shooting on auto white balance. But the second I shut off the overhead lights, which I know you can't really see them in here, but they're fluorescent, they're horrible, I'm just going to kill them. And bear in mind that when you go into a room and you go to shut the lights off, the first thing that's going to happen is someone's going to turn them back on because they're going to assume that was a mistake. And then you're going to shut them off again, and then someone's going to say, but it's so dark. And all you have to do is say, yeah, but it's exactly what I'm looking for, don't worry about it. Sometimes, like if the bride's mom is trying to do up the back of her dress or whatnot, I'll have to pop the light back on a little bit so that she can see what she's doing, but then we'll turn it right back off again. And I'm not saying go into the getting ready room and immediately turn the lights off and leave them off the entire time, because usually there's makeup artists working and things that are happening and you can't really control it like that. But when we reach this portion of, what I'm doing, and a lot of times if we're in a suite, if the bride's in one room getting hair and makeup done and I'm doing details in the other room, I can do whatever I want with the lights in the room that nobody's in. So to start off with what we're doing, the first thing that I want to do is adjust my light as best I can. So what that's going to mean before anything else is going to mean turning this light off. And the reason I'm doing this is for several reasons. One, it removes the incredibly annoying white balance of that awful little light. Second, it's not going to be a focal point in the room to draw your focus away from what you're trying to take a picture of. Third, it's just ugly. So what my assistant generally does at the start of every single day is to go around and get rid of as many lamps as possible, which usually involves picking them up and putting them on the ground. I tend to be a little oblivious sometimes and give people lampshade hats while I'm shooting, which is so unattractive. But if I'm going to start working my way through these details, I don't need this blazing light going on over here. However, I do want light coming in from this window. I'm going to scoot the dress over for a little bit. I would never actually shove an actual client's dress like that, but I can. So now we have some sort of unobstructed light coming in through here. And I know that you will be shocked to hear this as we are in Seattle, but it is overcast today. But we've still got light coming in through the window. So it doesn't have to be 12 noon or perfect light like cascading through the windows. As long as I've got something coming in, I'm pretty good to go. However, for me, it's actually a little bit too much light coming in through these windows. So I'm going to kill this window right here. All I'm going to do is just come over, gently move their stuff out of my way, and then close this down. The reason why I'm doing this is because all I want is the light coming through this window. This light over here is not helping me make the picture. It's actually distracting from what I'm about to do. So then I just sort of take stock of my situation and what I want to do. Usually I'm going to start off with the rings. So I look at everything that I have in the room at my disposal to make a ring shot. What I've got in here, I've got some invitations, like so, that I just callously threw down. I have these, which could be very useful. I've got shoes, okay. I've got a basket of plastic apples with some moss. All right. We have a candle, like so. So all of these things kind of on their own are somewhat unspectacular, but I can put them together to make something really great. So I would like you to bear in mind that we did not dress this set 3 weeks ago so that I could plot out all of these shots. When we were on break, I saw the set for the very first time, dressed like it was, and I'm making decisions about what I'm going to do while I'm talking to you right now. So this is my serious face, which means I'm dying a little bit inside. Can I borrow the mirror?
You want it?
Can I?
Sure.
Thanks. So we have a mirror that I took off of the wall, and I'm going to put it on the bed. Like so. Because as I've mentioned before, reflective surfaces are sort of my jam. And I like them. So what can I do with the mirror on the bed? So first I'm going to look at it and realize that I don't like my background, no matter which way I'm going to shoot. So if I'm going to come down here and I'm going to shoot, Naomi's my background. Or if I'm going to shoot into this way, the bed's my background. However, considering my light source from the window as it comes in this way, I don't want to shoot into this way because the light is coming from here. I want to shoot with the light at my back. So I'm going to angle it this way and put it here. And then I'm going to look and see sort of what's at my disposal to help me make something interesting. And sad to say, not a whole lot's going on here. So what I'm going to do, plastic candle, stuff. So I'm going to take some of these, put them over here, and anything that I'm going to use and move around, I'm going to end up putting back exactly where I got it. And even my assistant, who kind of knows what I'm doing, still looks at me like I'm a crazy person. So I'm going to get rid of these kind of iridescent looking ones and bring out the clear ones in the front. And usually I'm doing this thinking, oh God, I have just like 2 seconds and I have to do this right now because I have to get in. And she's doing stuff in the other room and everybody's looking at me like I'm weird. So we're going to cluster this together. That looks pretty all right. Apparently this bride today has 3 engagement rings. Baby bear, mama bear, papa bear. I like this one. So we're going to go with this one. So we're going to put it here. So what I'm looking at when I'm trying to do this, oh, I like it, actually. I like it a lot. I am onto something. And what you're going to see me shooting today is exactly how I would shoot on a client's wedding day, mistakes and all. And when I underexpose it, you'll get to see it. If I blow the exposure, you'll get to see it. You're so lucky. However, the images that I shoot today will also on Sunday be edited by Sidecar Post. And there were some questions as we were in the break. I got a few Twitter questions that were asking, what's Sidecar Post? And they're the post-production house that edits all of my raw files. And we're going to talk on Saturday about the relationship that you have with whoever edits your files, even if it's just yourself, and how that feedback loop can be really helpful in improving your images. Because they can tell me, hey, listen, you just got a D4 and all of a sudden, like all of your images are like half a stop underexposed. You might want to take a look at your LCD screen. And I look at it and I realize it's dialed down. So doing that sort of helps me improve every single wedding I shoot. This is a classy endeavor here. So I'll set something up and I'll look at it. It's not terrible, actually. Maybe you need something else. Sometimes I try too hard. But it's hard when you've kind of raised the bar for your clients and they want something really spectacular from you. and then you show up and it's just kind of not spectacular. Okay, I'm down. Let's go. So, pile of moss, a candle, some little beady things, and a hope and a dream. What you have to make sure of is you have to kind of look at the diamond that you're going to be shooting, and when you put it into the light, if it's catching the light the wrong way, it's going to really reflect back in sort of the bezels, and it'll end up looking like an opaque kind of flat thing. So I'll adjust it so that it doesn't look like that. And then I'm going to start off at f11, see what that looks like. So I'm at like an 80th of a second at f11. This is going to be ISO 10,000. You can take a look. See what we got here. This has to come off because I need to get a little lower down. Ooh, hey, I like you. Come back out. So I'm going to move the candle out because I want it to be a little warmer. And then I almost always am going to put a focal point right on one of the bezels. And then probably underexpose a bit and fire. Let's see what we got. So usually the first shot is a test shot, and we nailed it. Bam, kabam, just like that. One shot. But then I look at it and I realize, the angle that I'm at, I can't really see the reflection. So then I'm going to sort of configure my little glass beady things here. Get back down in it again. Focal point right on top of the side of the setting. But then I realized that the stone is so big, you know, it's such a problem that all of us have, that I actually at f11 can't get it all in. So I'm going to try f13, see what we got going on here. Focal point right on the edge. And with your macro, a lot of times your macro likes to hunt and peck. So you have to sort of, sometimes I'll switch it over to manual and manually focus. Sometimes I just get so angry that I paid money for glass and I want it to focus on its own, so I will mumble under my breath, focus, focus, focus. It doesn't always listen, but I'm going to try to make it go auto today. There we go. And let's see what we got. I think maybe we got a reflection this time. And we did. So you can see I've got my dark background because when I expose for the ring, it's got some light on it, so everything else goes dark. Everything that's in the foreground and background, the little beads that are in the front are about 2 inches away. The beads in the back are about 4 inches away. It gives me a graphic element in the front, a graphic element in the back. I put the moss on top to block. If I decided to go a little higher, it'll block Naomi from the background so that you won't see the person sitting on the other side of it. And there's ring shot number 1. It was very hard. If you'll notice, I actually noticed in the top left, there's kind of a really blown out spot. The facets of this diamond are really hard to get in. So we're going to try one more. We don't always have this luxury on the wedding day to be able to change the bride's other ring. But just to show you. And if something like that happens, if I've got one part that no matter where I angle it, it's still flat, maybe I'll fix it in post. Maybe I'll just bring the highlights down. Maybe I'll pull that bezel from the other side and paste it on top. But I try to get it in camera as absolute best as I can. So when we switch to another ring, just to show in the same scenario, single shot. See what we got? There you go. As you'll notice, I am at f13. But you still have your out of focus foreground and your out of focus background because you're shooting with a macro. I'm going to do another ring shot setup. Get rid of my moss. Get rid of the hilarious mess that I'm making. And I'm sort of doing kind of a ghetto job of cleaning up. But if this were the client's room, I would clean this meticulously. And by I mean my assistant. So sometimes I'll just grab stuff and move it around, and I'll see if there's any way that what I'm grabbing might work. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll look really stupid, what I do. So I've got this, again, this sort of high-end candle here, you know, flickering on and off, which is going to be really awesome when I try to expose that one. And then I just put the bride's garter in front of it. And the reason the garter is in front of it is I want to have a textural element in the background. I want the light to peek through just a little bit, but I have to pull the ring off of the background. And the reason why I want to show this to you, if I put the ring really close to the background at f13 and I shoot it like so, you get down here, focus, focus. Okay, so take a look at the closeness of the background to the actual image. Understanding, of course, yes, it's underexposed, I do see that, but I'm just trying to show you that you can really see the lace, even at f13, because it's practically right up on it. So I'm going to pull it out off of the backdrop, adjust my exposure accordingly. Go back to the other one that's really shiny. I like the really shiny one. Okay, so then I've pulled it almost a foot off of the background. We're going to have the same problem that we had before, where that one little bezel is going to be a little insane because this client had way too much money and bought way too fancy a ring and it's got way too many facets in it. So then once you pull it off of your background, you have something like such. Let's see how I did with fixing the exposure there. There you go. The difference in relationship between the background there and the background in the prior image, I have simply pulled it 3 inches away from the background, but you have a completely different foreground-background relationship, even at f13. And I can come in like this. Let's switch to the other one. We'll just keep trading them out. I'll pull a nice, tiny, sweet one right here. This is lovely. Again, come in on it. Because I'm shooting a vertical, I'm going to move my sensor, my focus point, so that the focus point goes directly on top of the prong that's holding the diamond in place. Because even at f13, if you focus and recompose too much using a macro, you're going to lose focus on what you've got. So we're going to sit here and let the macro think about it for a second before it decides that I need to focus it. There we go. Nice and clean. Fix the exposure just right. Let's see what we've got here. Lovely and perfectly in focus. I pulled the ring even further away from the background, so you can see that the lace in the background becomes a completely, indeterminate shape the further that it goes back. Now, if you want to do something like that, but you want more of a foreground element, let's take this. Why don't we shoot through this? This is literally just like a $5 garter. It's crazy. But I'm going to stack it up to make like a shape that I can shoot through. Leaving that candle there. See if I like this. I'm going to go back to my stack of, you know what? I'm just going to put this here in the interest of time to give myself something going on back there. Come here, lacy thing. Here we go. Sometimes I have 20 minutes to play with the ring. Sometimes I have an hour. Sometimes I have 5 minutes. And everything in between. There we go. Sometimes my assistant has to help me hold things, so on and so forth. So let's see what we've got here. Go a little macro, go. At f13 still, an 1/80th of a second. Let's see what that looks like. There you go. So as you can see, there's no major crazy trick that I'm doing to get these ring shots. You can see exactly what's happening right here. The background has a light texture because of the veil. The foreground has an interesting element that is out of focus because even at f13 with a macro, it's going to be out of focus. And you can see the ring is like 3 inches from the garter, which is 5-6 inches from the veil. Nice and clean and simple. Very easy. So that's how I would kind of get through the rings. I'll shoot her ring by itself. I'll shoot all the rings stacked up if I have a second to put them all together. And I will always start with the ring because I want to get it right back into her hand as fast as I possibly can. Questions about these? You guys are feeling good? How's the internet feeling? Is the internet happy?
Yes, the internet is
Good.
very happy.
Does the internet have any questions for me?
They're, asking a lot about focus, but I think,
Yes.
If you want to keep going to whatever you're comfortable with.
And I can continue talking about focus a little bit because it is a major, major thing when it comes to ring shots. Like I said, half the time I'll let my camera do autofocus. Half the time it can't find the prong or something to focus on, and it tries to focus inside the stone of the ring. If it does that, it irritates me. I'll switch it over to manual. It's not the fault of the lens. It's just the scenario and the thing that you're shooting. There are all these dazzling facets, especially when I start working with glitter. Then it kind of loses its mind. So I'll switch it over to manual and let it manually focus. Again, at f13, f16, your diamond is going to be focused all the way through. We feeling good? Are they feeling good?
I think so.
Are they happy? Okay.
I think that helps. I know it's always such a trick with the ring shots, where exactly to focus with
It
that
really
macro
is.
lens.
And so I'll move the focal point around so that it's literally on like the prong that holds the diamond into the ring. And if you're at 2.8, 3, 4, you're going to have the prong in focus and nothing else because of the magnification of the macro. I usually start at f9, f11 if the stone is bigger, f16 if maybe not the stone is huge, but there's a lot going on, like there's side stones and so forth. And then you just adjust as needed. There is no harm in chimping and zooming in to see if what you're getting is what you need.